There must be a cloud in Utah right now. Not because Clean Hits Corey is there. You may have seen him at the last game, but this is the first time in the Utah Hockey Club's franchise history, or team history rather, that they were shut out. And that game last night stung. But then today, October 23rd of 2024, the news that came out about two key pieces to the Utah Hockey Club's blue line really, really stung. And that news is that both John Marino and Sean Durzi are going to be out for months. We kind of had an idea that Sean Durzi wasn't going to be available for 4 to 5 months, but now two timelines have been confirmed by the Utah Hockey Club PR, and that cloud is pretty dark right now over the team. And me and Trent feel like we need to do emergency podcasts, a quick hits podcasts, because we were talking earlier, and there is a little bit of sun shining through the clouds. There is a little bit of light here. So today on this episode of Clean Hits Podcast, we are going to talk a little bit about this roster depth on the team, why the way BA general manager Bill Armstrong has been rebuilding this team from the studs up is really starting to work, and how we're starting to see that glimmer of hope of what solid depth and stacking players on top of players can do. I am Brad. We got Trent here. This is Quick Hits today. We're going to try to keep this one short and sweet and kind of talk about the house that GMBA built. So first of all, Trent, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, little road weary, back in town. Happy to be back talking Utah Hockey Club after a little bit of a sabbatical for a work trip, but unfortunate to have to come back to a bad loss and some even worse news. I think it was interesting how specific that the PR was in terms of confirming the actual location of the injury, not just upper body or lower body, but then noting that they had surgical procedures done on the right shoulder for Durzi and the lower back for John Marino. Really generous with the details in an era where details are harder and harder to come by in terms of official confirmation from Team PR.
Yes, agreed. Which almost gives me pause of if how accurate these timelines may be. They definitely gave it a 2-month buffer on both of them. So 4 to 6 for Durzi. Was it 2 to 4 for Marino, or was it 3 to 4? Either way, we're not seeing these two players till early 2025 at the earliest for Marino. Durzi we will be lucky to see in the spring, it sounds like. And how this impacts the right side of the defense is insurmountable. And that's kind of what we wanted to jump in and talk about. The other big news today was Maverick Lamora has been recalled from the Tucson Roadrunners. He is the hulking 6'7" defenseman, right shot, right defenseman from the 2022 draft. Another one of those savvy moves by general manager Bill Armstrong to move up a little bit to get his guy. If I remember correctly, shout out to HBK from the Clean Hits Discord. He dug up this one quote about the Montreal GM and scouting table slamming their heads and hands on the table when Utah went up and drafted Mav Lamb. So that was time to maybe see what he can do on this roster. I know he's been turning heads and impressing in Tucson. I think he had 2 goals in 2 games recently. And he may get his shot to make his NHL debut.
Yeah, he had 2 goals and an assist in just 4 games for the Roadrunners. After a really eye-opening camp, I think he turned a lot of heads in camp, did better in the preseason games than maybe a lot of people were expecting after a really strong rookie camp. And, he was drafted a few years back. We see Logan Cooley playing in the NHL already and Connor Geekie playing in the NHL already. So that draft class has firmly arrived in the league. But the difference for Lamora ironically, is what a key role injuries have played in his development thus far, holding him out of a significant number of games in each of the last 4 seasons, culminating with a bit of a heartbreaker this summer where he wasn't even able to participate in the Memorial Cup run that his team, the Drummondville Voltigeurs, went on. So the kid's missed a ton of time. And he was drafted as a project to begin with, a big, gangly, tall, 6'6", now 6'7" defenseman. These guys take a long time and they need a lot of games, and he's missed a lot. So for him to kind of power through all of that missed time and still develop so well is really, I think, a testament to his dedication, to the keen eye of Utah's scouts, and maybe their development staff figuring out a plan for him for what he can do off the ice or outside of his injuries to continue his developmental curve, which seems to be unfazed by the considerable number of games he's missed. And now injury plays a huge role in his development yet again, opening the door for him to potentially make his NHL debut, maybe as early as tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he makes the lineup tomorrow. I think after that 4-0 loss to the Sens, that maybe a little bit of a roster shakeup will be in order. Or maybe Tournier wants to give Maverick a little bit more time to kind of adjust and get a couple more practices in before he makes his actual NHL debut. Maybe they're making sure they can get Mav's parents out so they can kind of relive some of the drafting magic and watch their son play his first NHL game live. They may have to get their own press box room. If you know what we're talking about, you know. But a little bit of house cleaning before we jump into kind of the depth of this roster. If you want to learn more about Maverick Lamora, make sure to find our newest article on Clean Hits Hockey. We actually just dropped it today. Trent wrote this piece on Maverick Lamora, his big break. Hopefully that isn't foreshadowing in any sort of way, but we constantly are putting out articles at cleanhitshockey.com. I actually just wrote about backup goaltender Karel Vejmelka, who came in for relief for Connor Ingram last night. So this is a great spot to learn more about the players. And just so you know, we do have kind of our inaugural pricing going on right now. We said after 3 Utah Hockey Club losses, the price will be going up. We're going to make a slight adjustment for everybody. That is going to have to be 3 regulation losses. So you definitely have at least one more day, hopefully a lot longer, to jump in and get full access to everything at cleanhitshockey.com for the pricing you can see up on the screen. That's $5 a month, $40 annually, or that $60 Ute pricing, which gets you a Clean Hit shirt. And speaking of shirts, if you missed it, we have released the official Cult of General Manager Bill Armstrong shirt. So what I've been told from the tomes I've been reading is the more people who are wearing this shirt and own this shirt, the greater the powers of GMBA become. So all the players he's drafted or traded for, they get healthier, they get stronger, they get faster. So definitely want to pick up one of those from our store. You can find our link to the store in our Twitter bio. Of course, it always helps to give us a little extra support, and you can do that by following us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, we have our own Discord. You can find us at Clean Hits Hockey on any of those platforms. And one other shirt that we are still waiting to drop because we need 100 Twitter or Instagram followers is the Dylan Guenther nod to returning to the 36 Chambers, the classic ODB album, the classic Dylan Guenther Costco card. I'm not putting them in the store until we get to 100 followers. So make sure you're following us on Instagram as well, at Instagram at Clean Hits Hockey. Anyways, let's jump into the important stuff here. And earlier today, we were talking, really stinks to see kind of this a massive talent that general manager Bill Armstrong brought to the team in the offseason. He worked really hard to bring competitors, Stanley Cup ring winners to this blue line, vets to help supplement this young team. And now 2 of those top 4 defensemen are out for injury for the rest of 2024 and into 2025. Luckily, what seemed like our thinnest position of right defense is starting to take shape. And I think both you and I have been shocked with just how good Michael Kesselring has been, stepping up into Sean Durzi's role, playing big minutes with Mikhail Sergachev at the top pair, playing big minutes on the specialty teams. And it starts to make everything feel a little bit more comfy, especially now that we have brought up Maverick Lamara to potentially have another stud right defenseman maybe turn some heads this season.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not just like Mikhail Sergachev is babysitting him, right?
No.
Sergachev is producing and playing well and supporting Kesselring, who is also producing and playing well and supporting Mikhail Sergachev. So they're both playing huge minutes, both specialty teams. You're seeing Kesselring getting involved physically, dropping the gloves, scoring big goals. He's not just hiding in the shadow of Mikhail Sergachev and holding on for dear life in a bigger role, playing over his head. He slid right into that top pairing and played every bit the part of it, which has been the most heartening part of this entire terrible run of injuries, is to see a guy who's the next man up get called up into a big role and then absolutely flourish in it in a way that I don't think even the biggest Michael Kesselring fan would expect that he would. It's been a small sample size, but man, he's been great, right?
Yeah, he really has. And I know we do have some diehard Kesselring fans. BA's advocate in the Discord is one of them who was riding his goal prop and got to hit that against the Ducks game, I believe it was. So he made a nice, healthy amount of cash from that. But I agree. I don't think anybody here was expecting this or quite expecting this. I think preseason when you and I were talking about it, and even and I actually wrote the preseason report card article on Kesselring. I was highlighting some of the areas of improvement for him. One, these all season so far, and especially these past 2 games, those areas of concern for his actual defensive play are slowly going away. Now, granted, it's a small sample size, but the factor that I thought I needed to see a lot more of to make him a special player was using his big frame, because he sits at 6'5", and he's a fantastic skater for somebody his size. And there was a lot of hesitation last season. Granted, he was, not as NHL ready, has not played as many NHL games at that point. But this change in his physicality happened quick. It sometimes will take players a while to realize that they are allowed to hit other big players, or they're allowed to hit smaller players, or players that are older than them. Felt like Krause kind of particularly took a while to really start to feel like a power forward. And here we are, Kesselring is looking damn good out there. And it's really exciting, because what happens when Marino is back? Is he going to stick with Sergachev, and now we have maybe Kolyachonok playing with Marino? Or are we going to have Valimaki with Marino and more of a pure shutdown line, or even Cole? The options here, the optionality, if you will, start to become really interesting when you have a full lineup of Marino, Durzi, Kesselring on the right side with Mavlam knocking at the door.
Absolutely. It becomes a really good problem to have if we ever can get there, right? And a lot of people need to get healthy and stay healthy before we do get there. I think it's a good point you make about Kesselring, the physicality. And I remember seeing a behind the scenes video where Bill Armstrong had Kesselring in his office and was giving him a pep talk about what he needs to see from him before he considers him a full-time NHL player, a legitimate NHL player. And it was utilizing that size and playing with more aggression. And I remember Bill Armstrong laying it out for him very specifically, very candidly, and not really pulling any punches, which I remember thinking at the time, that's the best kind of manager, is the one who gives you an honest assessment of exactly what they want to see from you and doesn't sugarcoat it, right? He gave him his homework. Kesselring went and worked on it, And look at what's paid off now. I mean, a lot has gone into his development over the years in coaching, but I think hearing from Bill Armstrong in no uncertain terms exactly what he needs to work on and seeing him take that and run with it is huge. And I think that that's exactly what you want to see in your manager and in your coaches. So I'm glad to see it. But yeah, you make a great point, Brad. Imagine a scenario now where we know what Kesselring's capable of, where we see what Maverick Lamra has accomplished in the AHL. He seems to be a little bit ahead of schedule. Also, add back in a healthy Durzi who's locked up long-term, a John Marino who they obviously feel very strongly about, trading 2 second-round picks for him over the summer, who has a couple years left on his deal as well. And suddenly this right side defense that we were all a little worried about just a few months ago is looking pretty darn good once everybody's healthy.
Yeah, and speaking of even going further down the pipeline, I know you've been enjoying the pat on the back you can give yourself about Lavoie.
Yeah, that's right. Thomas Lavoie, who
Lavoie.
Yeah, no worries. I started taking notice of him middle of the year last season, and I thought, I'm going to check out this kid who's on my list is a big, tough, hard-nosed defenseman, right shot, a typical BA style player. But I noticed, holy cow, this kid can really move the puck. I was not expecting it, and it didn't take long before he started eclipsing players on my list, just leaps and bounds over the likes of like Colton Roberts and some of these more highly rated physical right shot defensemen also playing in the CHL because of his ability to move the puck and skate with it and show poise under pressure with the puck, adding such a bigger element to just being a big, lumbering, mean, nasty defenseman, which he does have that element too. But there's definitely some upside there, so much so that I had him in my top 40, very near a first rounder. He did end up going in the third, much more where the consensus had him. But now he's producing well over a point per game. He's leading his team in scoring in Cape Breton. And he's looking early on in the season like he's way ahead of schedule too. And this is yet another right shot defenseman in the mold of a Lamara or a Kesselring, where he's a big, strong, athletic, good skating, large right-handed D. So just another piece of organizational depth that we're seeing yet again on that right side. I mean, before this season started, I told myself, I don't care. I'm picking whatever my top rated right D is at the next draft because it's such a drastic area of need. But now we've got Durzi signed long term. We've got Marino in the fold. We've got Maverick Lamara already shining in Tucson and earning himself a call up. We've got Kesselring playing out of his mind, and Thomas Lavoie is lighting the QMJHL on fire. So things are looking up at that position. Still maybe not as strong as like the winger position organizationally, but definitely not looking like dire straits any longer.
Yeah, and the theme of this show right now is the depth that this roster has, both on the current roster and in the pipeline. And you just gave me the layup for the winger depth. And there's something that I think needs to be addressed, and it's Michalli sitting on the fourth line. I've seen a lot of people questioning why he is down there. That we're not seeing the best of him because of the limited playing time he gets being on the fourth line, plus who he's playing with. And right now it feels a little bit like he is sat down on the fourth line to be able to spread kind of the responsibility between the more two-way forwards and veteran forwards up and down the lineup, because another key piece of this team has not played one game yet, and that's Nick Bjugstad, which, side note, was traded to Edmonton 2 seasons ago at the deadline to acquire Michael Kesselring and another pick, finished his playoff run with Edmonton, re-signed to Arizona that offseason, and now is at the end of his 2-year. Is it this the last? Yes, this will be the last season on that 2-year contract when he re-signed. So it's like he went fishing and came back with the 6'5" right shot defenseman Michael Kesselring. But
yeah, he went on a 2-month vacation and came back with a came back with a friend. Yeah. Kesselring, who's now like our number 2 defenseman basically on the team. So thanks a lot, Yugi. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is exactly why we need more people to buy that Cult of GMBA shirt, because this is the type of magic he is able to make when he has more members of that cult. But anyways, Bukestad should be returning fairly soon. And I think when that happens, it's going to help stabilize the forward core a little bit. And I think we won't see kind of that bottom 6 be kind of shuffled around as much. I definitely think our top 6 is pretty well established and the chemistry is very good right now. But Bukestad being back means that we can reunite that Kraus, Bukestad, Michelli line that was very successful and brought a lot of depth scoring to the team last season, which also means Kerfoot, who is the ultimate Swiss Army knife of a hockey player, especially at forward, can kind of slide back down to the 4th line with Stenlund, and then kind of maybe a rotation of Yamamoto, Carcone, and Liam O'Brien with those 2, which to me means Doan is kind of the odd man out here. I think he's been playing fantastic for how young he is and how inexperienced he is in the NHL. He brings a lot of energy. He brings some good net front presence. He's good against the board. Gets knocked around a little bit still, though. And I think he can maybe improve his offensive instincts a little bit better if he's kind of the guy or one of the guys in Tucson. And again, it allows to take a little bit of youth out of the lineup, provides another player who's a little bit more responsible and more used to playing center, move Michelli up, provide just a little bit more coverage up and down the lineup.
Yeah, and I think that winger depth is huge, right? And we see it throughout the organization, and we see that with a coinciding move where Noel Nord was sent back down to the Sioux Greyhounds from the AHL Roadrunners. So a little bit more of a spot for Doan if he does end up going down. It's kind of the easiest solution because he's on a 2-way contract and he doesn't have to clear waivers. And we can always bring him back up whenever we want. So there's a bit of a luxury for, I think, the organization to take advantage of from a contract perspective. That, as sad as it would be to see him go down, it does have a little bit of convenience, as maybe cynical as that is to say. This is a business, and if you don't want to lose Yamamoto or Carcone on waivers, Doan's probably the guy to go down, provided everybody else does stay healthy, which is not a foregone conclusion given everything we've seen so far. But hopefully the luck balances out on the injury front. We've got, heaven knows, enough bad luck. Let's not have any more. I think a little bit of good luck on the forward front could balance things out. Now, I do like to imagine when Josh Doan goes down, right? I want to imagine him running up and down the stairs, right? I want to imagine him chasing the chicken through the alley. I want to imagine him boxing the sides of beef in the cold case, you know what I mean? In the freezer truck, and listening to Eye of the Tiger. So that way, when he gets called back up and he has his rematch with Radko Gudas, this time he can really rearrange his face and just beat the tar out of the guy. You know what I mean?
When is that game?
Josh Doan revenge tour commence. I want him down in Tucson, chasing chickens, punching sides of beef, and just getting ready for Radko.
Well, we got December 22nd in Utah against the Ducks, or March 12th. Maybe that March 12th one we should have him training for.
That's it. Yeah, we'll see if Radko even dresses or if he just comes down with a case of the yellow bellies the night before and can't play, right?
Yep. Well, now even though we've been able to find some of the sunshine kind of breaking through the dark clouds of the day, let's not address the elephant in the room. This is still a thin blue line right now because of the injuries. Kolyachonok stepped up big in that Boston game. I thought last night I didn't see as much oomph from him, if you will. I think Ian Cole is still getting his bearings straight. And I think a lot of this has to deal with the penalties that have been taken from this team, meaning a lot of these guys, especially the vets, are playing a lot of time on the PK, especially a guy like Cole. I think as this kind of next man up blue line continues to play games, we may start to see a little bit more cracks in it. And kind of going back to that winger depth, if they cannot string together some wins, and it's a very bumpy roller coaster ride these next couple months while Marino is still out, I am not opposed for a trade, and I am not opposed to moving some of this winger depth we have to maybe acquire more of a luxury defenseman. I know on our last episode, we broke down about 5 different trades, anywhere from former first round pick in the same draft class as Maverick Lamora, David Urasek as an option. Also talked about some vets like Connor Murphy or Flower. I'm trying to think of where we could go with this, because maybe it's a small move with like a Carconi and a pick to get a little winger depth unloaded and bring back maybe somebody who's more of a stopgap. Or could it be one of those situations where we're looking to get somebody that's more on that late 20s side that could be part of this core for a little bit and dangle a larger pile of chips that may include someone like Michelli, who in a couple of years here may not find time on the top 6, may never find time on the top power play, and may never be able to become the player he could be on another team where he gets those opportunities here.
Yeah, nobody wants to deal Matias Michelli. He's got a special skill set. He's very, very talented. We all love the kid. He's great. But Daniel Boot is like destroying the KHL. He looks incredible. You've got Tisha Ginla down in Kelowna just filling the net with goals in the WHL. These are the wingers of the future, along with Clayton Keller and Dylan Gunther, who are locked up long term. And just those 4 wingers is already the entirety of the wingers in a top 6. There's only 4 winger spots in a top 6. And listen, Tisha Ginla and Daniel Boot are not sure things, but there's plenty of winger depth, including Lawson Krause and Josh Doan. Even down in Tucson, we've got Mikko Matica down there, who's really performing well. We've got all kinds of recently drafted, really appealing looking wingers, and plenty of centers who might make the switch to wing, like Jack McBain as an example, is another name that probably is largely responsible for Matias Michelli being down on the 4th line, because McBain isn't anymore. He's in the top 6. So that's Michelli's spot already. I don't think any of us were really expecting to reach this point quite yet. I think we all thought this might happen next year when guys like Ginla and Boot are ready to grab roster spots. But we are here in a position where we're wondering, should we send Josh Doan down even if he doesn't deserve it? And is Matias Michelli going to continue to play on the 4th line? They say it's a good problem to have, and it's a good problem to have, to your point, because in addressing that problem, you may be able to address another problem, like the serious situation the team finds itself in on the blue line.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be interesting to see what direction Bill Armstrong takes. Elliot Friedman on the 32 Thoughts podcast this week said he doesn't expect Bill Armstrong to just go out and make a trade. He doesn't like dealing trades and making those types of moves when he feels pushed into a corner, and this is absolutely where he's at. So seeing that recall of Mav Lam today kind of indicates that he wants to make sure that we don't currently have the depth to get through this and power through for the next couple months. Or maybe that type of move is for him to kind of weigh out his options. Do I just need a depth guy? Do I just need a Liljegren, like we talked about, that may be a little bit cheaper and can just be a power play specialist, but isn't going to be able to eat a ton of minutes? Or do I need to go find a vet, rangy defenseman that is going to help stabilize the blue line a little bit, and so we're not allowing 4 goals in the first period over and over? I think it's going to, I hate to say it, I am leaning that in 2 to 3 more weeks here, that decision may be made. And I think how the team plays in these 2 to 3 weeks is going to determine if it's a small move, or if it's moving some extra pieces that we have, like Michelli, and maybe some picks to acquire somebody that has a little bit of term and is going to help the team right now. it's going to be interesting to see here. I think it's going to be one of those things that kind of keep your finger on the pulse, because I think we'll find out, we are going to find out really quick what this defensive depth looks like and if it can hang.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's good motivation for the team that if you like all the faces you see in the locker room and you want to keep them all around, make sure you're bringing your A game and winning, because if the team hits a slide, you might see some changes. And I think another factor is the league, right? Like right now, BA is the one who'd be a little bit over a barrel, a little bit leveraged in these negotiations, but let some pressure mount on some other teams. I think calling up Mavlam buys a little time. Let's see what happens. You know, if Buffalo continues to free fall, or some other teams, the fans are starting to get a little bit restless, like with Detroit. There may be some options that kind of materialize where some other GMs start feeling some heat, maybe not necessarily for injury issues, but maybe for other issues where the offense just is not clicking, like in Nashville as an example. So there might be a way for, two ships in the night to pass just at the right time, where both GMs are feeling equally pressured to make a move that BA doesn't feel completely leveraged in a deal. So maybe he's just buying a little time and being patient and seeing what happens, seeing what can materialize over the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I think I'm very excited to see Mavlam make his debut. Hopefully that does happen. I know Andre Tournier didn't necessarily say, yes, he is for sure playing. Mavlam himself kind of admitted that he may just be up here to kind of get some reps in with the big club and watch some games and get more ready for making that debut, maybe down the road. I suspect that we will see him play, maybe not tomorrow against the Colorado Avalanche, but maybe this weekend or sometime early next week. I think that's going to be a very exciting game, though, because this has been a fun prospect, an exciting prospect, and one that kind of has defined the way BA drafts with those quote unquote redwoods. But yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting couple months, and this team could look a little bit different before January, before 2025. And those changes that happen could affect the way this team looks next year, where I thought there's going to be a lot of areas where kind of the prospects for making the team, the Simashevs, the Boots, maybe even somebody like Duda or Mavlam cracking the roster next year. We may have more players than we know what to do with. and it may be one of those things that they just roll with it and let the prospects overbake it and overcook. But
wherever the AHL franchise is and whoever the coach of that AHL franchise is next year definitely hopes for that scenario where the minor league team is just filled to the gills with super talented youngsters chomping at the bit to get called up. It's a recipe for a winning culture throughout the organization.
Agreed. And I guess the other shining light through that black cloud right now, too, is I know I wouldn't care if we got another pick in the 8 to 14 range.
One last hurrah for the rebuild. One more jewel in the crown before we start picking way later in the draft. Yeah, I mean, that would be a silver lining for sure. And who knows, maybe Lady Luck finally shines on us at the draft lottery. A little early to be talking about draft lottery odds, especially when the team has like a 63% point percentage or something like this, very high. But, you know, at the end of the day, that's always the thing we can fall back on. If everything comes undone, we get to keep all this young talent that we've amassed and we get to add to it. So that's the worst case scenario. Is not very bad. So that's definitely the silver lining.
Yeah, completely agreed. Well, again, this is the Clean Hits Hockey Podcast. Hate to be the bearer of bad news if you didn't catch it earlier, but again, some rays of light are peeking through, and hopefully this helps everybody calm down a little bit and know that this is going to be an interesting time to see exactly what we got, and that Bill Armstrong's plan of stacking players on top of players on top of players is kind of already showing its value. And it's going to be an exciting game tomorrow. It's going to be an exciting game this weekend. And I'm really excited to see how this team still kind of plays next man up. And hopefully we get some dubs coming up here.
Absolutely. Especially while Corey's in Utah. Let's get him some goals against the Avs. Come on.
Yes. Yes. He needs to see a goal. So if you see Corey at the Utah game tomorrow against the Colorado Avalanche, make sure you say hi. I think he's kind of just distributing clean hit stickers all over the city. So look out for those too. You can catch us at cleanhitshockey.com for all of our written content. Check out that new Mavlam article that Trent dropped today. Check out my Carl the Melka article to get to a little bit more familiar with a goaltender who may be getting some extra appearances, since it seems like Ingram has played quite a few games to start the season. Check us out on X/Twitter at Clean Hits Hockey, on Instagram at Clean Hits Hockey. I think we got 97 followers. Get us to 100, and we will press that Costco Dylan Gunther shirt. You can join us in our Discord. You can find that link both in any of our articles or in our Twitter bio. And of course, give us a subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts at Clean Hits Hockey. I am Brad. That is Trent. This was an episode of Quick Hits. Adios. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.